It's time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE, our weekly program with Mayor Bob Morgan. And good morning, Bob. How are you?
Doug, good morning. I'm doing good. I think I've survived those last 3 or 4, 20-degree mornings.
Yeah. Here we are into November, but good-looking weather for the next at least 6 days, I think.
I know it. So. And, I know it's been a cold snap, but, I've looked around and, it's really the trees and everything are really turning and still a lot of leaves on the trees.
Yeah. It's also allowing a little bit of work to be finished up, and we'll get to that in just a
Absolutely.
little bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice that you get a couple extra days there to kind of complete things.
We're hoping a couple extra weeks.
Yeah. Maybe the old extended forecast will hold out for through maybe almost Thanksgiving or so.
That we hope so.
That would be good. I did not get to go to the Board of Public Works meeting yesterday. I understand you were there. Anything of note that was handled at the utilities level of the city?
Well, gave them opportunity to kind of review a couple of board policies, one on sewer charges and security lights, and also on the water tap fees that we have. Most of the changes that were there were, I want to say, clerical, or in one case there was listed a position for an assistant that wasn't ever been in there, and so most of it was just cleaning up those two policies, board policies. As far as the water tap fees, that gets renewed we look at that every year of what it costs to put the tap in. We charge $1,950. I think when they did the review, we had a few that were under, a few that were over, and at the end of the day, that $1,950 seemed like it was still a prudent place to be, so we're not going to raise the water tap fee for 2024.
Just kind of a regular look at how you do things on the water sewer side, so no major changes to speak of then.
No really major changes. I think, as we get into some of the winter months and some of those things to do, I think kind of one of the goals is to take a look at other policies to see if there's little errors or some changes that can make to always continue to improve the Board of Public Works. That being said, department heads do a great job, and the Board of Public Works members, it's been really fun for me to go to those meetings because they ask them really good questions, and it's not just unanimous, and the discussions are always good. I think one of the discussions we had, as interest rates went up, they wanted to make sure that if we did have cash reserves, that they were getting their 4.5% or 5%, which is where CDs or money markets seem to land today. So they're always thinking about what is in the best interest of those departments and for the city. So I want to thank them for their dedication. They give up, their noon hours at least twice a month, and if they need to meet more often, they certainly will.
And I think investments of public money, aren't there laws that control what you can invest in? In other words, you can't choose really high risky things. You got to use vehicles that are, relatively safe. On the other hand, investors will tell you, well, you might not get quite the return, but that's what the law says, as I understand.
That is correct. You want to protect, 3% low risk is better than 7% high risk and end up losing.
Yeah.
So.
Usually during Board of Public Works meetings, at least every other meeting, you get kind of a project update from Tobias in terms of here's where some of the things are at. From that, anything notable that we haven't mentioned before?
Actually, when Jason Moore in the Streets Department gave his report, a little bit of a change. At one point in time, Industrial Row is going to be completely shut down and use Arapahoe, I believe. After visiting with the biodiesel plant, and they run roughly 40 trucks a day through there. Arapahoe probably wasn't the best solution, so what they decided to do was do one side of Industrial Row. They can use accelerator in the concrete so it dries a little bit quicker. And so they will basically have the traffic's open on one lane. They hope to get the one lane that they're working on now done by Monday, and then they'll flip over, open that lane up, and they'll do the other lane, and they hope to get done by Friday or Monday of the following week. So Industrial Row is open. It's just one lane traffic.
Just have to go through slowly, and you'll be restricted to that one lane for a little while.
Yep.
Then. I'm certainly not a construction engineer, but I can't remember as far as concrete pouring and things. Is it below 50 you can't do much, or below 55? I don't I can't remember what it was.
I think at one point in time in our lives that's true, but I think now with technology and things they add in concrete, I think that they can pour, a lot colder than that.
Yeah. In addition to the industrial row, talking with Jason recently, I think he had possibly a project on maybe West Mary, or he had a couple others. I think there was a valley project that they were going to fix. So there's still a couple of things left trying to squeeze in as the weather allows.
There are, and it looks like the weather's going to warm up enough. And remember, I think it's Waverly that was where we get our asphalt. And so we have to be real careful there for the temperature, because if we hauled it in this cold weather, it would be in one big chunk in the back of the truck. But they've got a couple asphalt projects they want to get finished, and the next couple of weeks look good for that. One thing I might mention, between 7th and 9th Street on Court, you'll see a couple of places that instead of asphalt, we did concrete to fill in the holes. And that had to do with the temperature. And to make sure that we got that project done on time. Concrete will work really, really well, and as much as I hate to even bring this up, but again, it's not the city, but it's the Nebraska Department of Roads. Come this spring, from 2nd to 21st Street, 136 is going to get refinished. And so when they do that, we want to make sure, that kind of coincides really nicely, because we got the water main all done. And now we got all the patching done, and we got a number of patches on that road. So when they do a mill and overlay, they're going to have a really good solid base to get that done.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, are you saying your phone's lighting up already, or
what? No. But it's really kind of tough to figure out. Is it the city or is it the Department of Roads? Because that's like, I will occasionally. About once every other month, I'll get a phone call or an email.
Probably on traffic lights, right?
On traffic lights, yes. And how they're timed. And I have to say, well, I'm afraid that's a Department of Roads thing. I can't do anything there. So, you're right.
Just east of the downtown, there was some curb work done, too, wasn't there, in there, if I remember right?
There's some curb work, and there's also curb work between 10th and 13th Street.
That's right, yeah.
They're on the south side, and that project has been, again, I think, hats off, because we have so many talented people in the electric company and the streets, and, even like in our city engineer. The construction company that's putting in the sidewalks are working with the electrical people, because some of the poles may need to be moved, and then the street department as they go down. And the cooperation has really sped that up. They should be done with the south side probably maybe toward the end of this week. And then they'll flip over to the other side. So within 2 weeks, the curb and gutter and the sidewalks will be in. Kind of a reminder, the ADA ramps will be put in as they redo the mill and overlay the next summer.
I noticed a couple of those really cold mornings they had that work covered up too, because it probably was still curing or whatever. And so I had to kind of take a couple of precautions there while you got down to the teens and low 20s there for a couple of mornings.
That's hard, because all of us don't like all the barricades, the traffic and rerouting, but at the end of the day, if you don't do it, again, I think one of the things I've always said is we want to try to make sure that we prepare for the future, and doing the maintenance now will help us 10 years from now.
I think it was supposed to be the middle of this week. All the cones, barricades are supposed to be gone on Court Street.
Yes.
Because I know the water main work was moving to Market Street now.
They've started on Market from 3rd to 6th.
Yeah. So that's kind of the last leg of the dreaded water main construction work that you had to do, though. It's one of those things where every time I hear about how old those pipes are, it seems like more years get added to it. I thought at first we were thinking 80 to 90 years, and talking to Steve Kelly, he was thinking, well, there might be some sections that might be 100 to 110 in there. So I guess you've gotten your money's worth out of those lines over the years.
I guess if you put that over 100 years, you've really done very well.
But now it's borrowed time, so it's good to
get them done.
Replace it with that. So the Market Street work, I'm assuming that's probably wrapped up by end of November or Thanksgiving, or
I think they're shooting to be done by Thanksgiving, I believe.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, you don't know what weather you're going to get after that.
Yeah. We are into winter season, and the construction comes to a halt till next year.
It's true.
Unless you have one of those unfortunate circumstances, and you have in the past, where a water main breaks in the middle of winter, and there you go.
Yes, that does happen.
Yeah.
And our guys are out there to fix it in all types of weather.
Yeah. They have my admiration.
Absolutely.
I don't think I'd want to do that.
Well, all types of weather and all times. So, you know,
Good.
they do a great job, and people need to just understand that they really know what they're doing, and they're willing to do it when that water main breaks.
Yeah. Back with more on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. We're back on Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Bob Morgan. Had a chance to speak with the street department and Jason Moore recently about the upcoming snow removal in the process, and I know the city's always had a very good snow removal program. One that I think a lot of, you look at larger cities that have obviously a lot more streets, a lot more area to cover. Sometimes in some areas you're kind of on your own. If you get a snow of 3, 4, or 5 inches, it's kind of like find your way around, but there's a system for handling various streets in Beatrice, and each year it gets done.
There are, and our crews do a really good job, and I think if, I know that you guys had an article on your webpage that talked about the technology when you visited with Jason Moore, and I think what we've really done is we've leveraged technology and data to do the job as efficiently as we can. And I think, I guess don't hold me to this, but I think typically snow removal routes, we'll get to them if there's 2 inches or less. And then residential's really depends on the wind, but certainly I get that 3 to 4 inch area. Well, we do all the residential streets now. Since I live where I live, I'm a block away from a snow route,
Kind of an
emergency
arterial
route.
or an emergency route, yeah.
So I kind of have to laugh because sometimes my neighbors will say, well, they stopped right there and didn't do our street. What good is it for you being mayor? Shouldn't you get your street done? And it's no, I shouldn't.
It's all uniform,
So we have our own rules and regulations, but, that's where the emergency route ends.
Yeah.
And really on a 2 inch snow, it really doesn't cause a lot of problems. But it's just kind of funny because there is, as you see these emergency routes, you will see some definite demarcation lines where they're not entering into there. But, from somebody who has lived in Lincoln for a number of years before moving to Beatrice, I can tell you that we are blessed. Because in Lincoln, first of all, the residential areas, if they get done, are always last. So you got everybody who drives over them. And then when they do it, at least back when I was there, and I don't think it's changed, they do it all by contractors. And so you're also having contractors that will do them after they've already done a lot of other people. So they might have a day or a day and a half lag. Yeah. And in some real big snows, they can't get to work for a couple days just because the streets, and then they're bigger, I get it. But, I always say to people, thank goodness we have the snow removal we do, because they do a good job.
Yeah. Back in the days when vehicles were rear-wheel drive, and now you have front-wheel drive in a lot of vehicles, more and more than with all-wheel drive now. A 2 or 3 inch snow isn't quite what it used to be. I mean, if you had to go up a big hill with a rear-wheel drive vehicle, you'd be spinning forever. But so really, the need to actually go out on absolutely every light snow isn't necessarily there anymore for a lot of areas.
No, that's true. Plus, I think the street crew and Jason does a good job of looking at the weather. One of the new technologies that they have in the truck actually automates the process of putting down salt or brine or whatever we're going to put down, and it's monitored. And I think everybody will see as, maybe there's going to be a snow, you'll see these lines that are put down with the liquid brine prior to the snow, which helps, on some of those snows, that's not a lot. Sometimes that's all you need. And so I think they're using a number of weapons to continue to keep the snow at a minimum on our roads.
And the vehicles spread that around so it melts everything from the bottom up on those real light ones where you can kind of prevent a big ice problem or something like that. But it'll be interesting to see, and I don't know exactly how they'll do this, but just tracking the use of that technology to see over time, how much material did we put down? Did it work? Did we save wasting, say, material that the old method might have done, say, at an intersection where your truck stops and the spinner's still going or whatever? It'll be interesting to see maybe what the results of that are.
Well, and that's a side benefit to the automation piece. We'll have the data at the end of the year to take a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we continue to use that data for 2 or 3 years, we'll have a nice trend to see what we are saving.
Mm-hmm. You had a pretty light year snow-wise last year. Kind of hoping for the same this year.
Yeah. We're hoping that we have kind of the same snow. Maybe 3 inches about the 21st of December, and it's gone by January.
Not that we couldn't use the snow cover for the moisture worth of it.
That's true.
But as long as we avoid the big blizzards and things, that'll be good. I was talking with him about some of the big ones in the past, and I don't recall the year, but I think he said one year in December you had like 3 almost blizzard-level storms over a single month, and that's the kind you want to avoid if you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll be back in a moment on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan. To wrap up things today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan, I was walking the trails, I think it was last weekend, Riverside Park, and the bathrooms were locked up. But you have to do that every year. You get into cold weather and, pipes freezing and things like that. I guess this is the time of year.
This is the time of year. What was it, Friday? You could see what was coming for Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday morning, and even this morning, I think we're down to, 21 or something, 26.
Yeah.
So, that freezes those type of pipes. So it's just like if you have an underground sprinkler system in your yard. I bet there was a lot of them drained on Friday, including mine, because, you just don't know what's going to happen. And when they freeze that hard, pipes break. And so unfortunately, you'd like to keep the bathrooms open longer, but time has come. Winter is here.
Despite that, I saw campers at Riverside and Chautauqua. You still have some people that pretty much stay almost through the winter.
We do.
Times.
We do. Yeah.
So does that, the electric hookups, I'm assuming everything is still goes through the winter pretty much. It's just the water in that.
Yeah, you got to be careful about the water.
Okay. I think it was mentioned in the past, or there's been discussion in the past with the popularity of the camping spots, and then you get companies that bring in crews to do like regular maintenance. Ever any thought of, expanding the camping availability, or is that something that's ever kind of been on the board still as a possibility in the future?
I think the topic comes up every once in a while.
Yeah.
I think when that topic comes up, the question is where.
Yeah.
I think at Chautauqua we've probably pretty much outgrown there, but there might be some other parks that we could possibly take a look at. Don't think we've had that discussion for a little while, but I know from time to time it has come up.
I see. Okay. Update on committee work. I know when you first came on board as mayor, one of the things you wanted to do was appoint committees to take a look at some of the weightier issues that you have to deal with over time. One of them is what to do with the Dempster property and that long-term project of addressing that. Recently, not too long ago, you had one building come down in there. Any kind of update on how the committee's doing there, or what else is heading down the pike here maybe in the next few months?
Well, we continue to try to work and clean the place up. A lot of things you won't see a lot of that progress, and I know you were on that tour, and I know there are pictures of everything that's in there. So, a lot of the things like that get done when we have spare time with some of the people in our departments. The committee's done a good job. The major issue that we run into, as they have found out, is that in order to get a lot of this done, 2 things need to happen. Number one, we need to own the rest of the properties, because there are still some properties we don't own. And secondly, there's a lot of rules and regulations. And I know when the committee went up to Lincoln to meet with, I think, the Nebraska Department of Environment, not only they were kind of surprised at how long it takes, but I think in some respects they were kind of lost in what that process looks like, because there's a lot of mnemonics for everything, first of all, so you got to wade through everything they say. So they're diligently kind of working on those, but it is a project that is going to take some time.
Yeah. The committee on, what was it, downtown redevelopment?
Yep.
What's the update there?
Again, the master concept was approved, a couple, 2-3 months ago. And now it's a matter of just taking a look at what possible next steps are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mainly funding alternatives?
Well,
things
funding
like that?
alternatives are going to come up, yes.
Okay.
Because we know that that's just a monster of a project that you can't put on the backs of taxpayers. So you have to figure out how do you want to get it done.
Yeah.
And so that will take some time. And the thing about it is it's really going to take some time to try to figure out how do you get those grants from the federal government, because they're written in a very special way. That's why we have that 3-month commitment with a firm from Washington, D.C. that's analyzing our community and really trying to tell us up front what our chances might be.
There was some discussion about, what's maybe the future of Ella Street between 6th and 3rd or 4th, kind of in there, as to what might be done with that or might make that a little bit more pedestrian.
Right,
friendly.
and that kind of the model is still being developed and drawn up, I believe, in-house. After we studied, we were trying to think about maybe like 4th and 5th Street there. With my limited knowledge of how things work in the world, our city engineer said, well, as you do projects, you have to remember from a sewer perspective, you need to start at the bottom and work your way up, because you can't go from the up and work your way down. So now I think we're looking at that model to be on maybe 2nd and 3rd Street. So there's a little, that was a little bit of a delay and a little bit of, oh yeah, that probably is something we should have considered that I just didn't even, I and anybody else didn't really think about.
The third committee on ordinances, codes, which is chaired by Gary Barnard,
Yes.
I believe. Periodically, you're getting suggestions that are coming before the council there on that committee.
We are. I mean, Gary's done a good job, because it's not easy to wrangle the ordinances. It's not easy to read through all the ordinances. And then as we go through the ordinances, it depends on which one it is, but we also have to remember, I think it was on nuisance properties, you have to remember that both property owners have rights, and there's notifications that need to come about. And so it's not as easy a process as what you would think, but it's getting done. And I think, we'll continue to look at ordinances throughout this, next 4 years.
Yeah.
And maybe some of them we'll find we really don't need.
Yeah. Periodically you do things that you kind of scratch your head and I wonder why that was put in place 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, well the one we, I guess the ordinance we did repeal was the peddler's tax.
Yeah.
That was probably written, probably in the maybe 1920s or 30s, about people coming in and selling out of their wagons. And, it was probably time to not have that on the books.
Yeah. Some things get outdated and they get maybe overlooked for a little while. But back to downtown, it was interesting, not too far back, the Halloween event that Main Street held. Boy, was that a big turnout.
They had a good crowd.
Yeah, it's really become kind of a popular event, kind of a trick-or-treating alternative for some families, too, that maybe don't want to do the traditional at-night things like you used to do, like we did when we were way back young. But it's a nice opportunity to kind of do this instead.
It really is, and I want to thank Main Street for putting that on every year, and all the volunteers, and the city that had their equipment out there, and I think this year we were also blessed with great weather.
Yeah.
And so it is a great alternative, and I think as I look through different news places, I think there's a lot of alternatives from different cities.
Yeah.
Ours is the Great of the Night Pumpkin. I think Fairbury had a trunk or treat, and I think Philly had something. So I think there's going to be more and more organized functions, and maybe in some respects safer functions for kids to go trick-or-treating.
Had all the traffic cones down and everything, and it beat it just in time for that event to be held. Then you got a big one coming up. Chamber of Commerce has a big one coming up in early December with the holiday lighted parade. So
that's right.
That'll be good too.
That will be right around the corner.
Yep, coming up pretty soon. Coming up Monday night, city council meeting. Long one, short one. You got anything of note that's on the agenda at this time?
I really haven't seen the agenda yet this week. I'll do that at 1 o'clock today. I'm sure there'll be a number of routine items that need on the consent agenda that need to get approved so we can pay people for the work that they've done. Might be a couple, I'm sure there'll be some resolutions that'll be there. So at this point in time, I'm shooting from the hip.
Yeah. That effort to raise private money for sponsorships for Hannibal Park been going very well.
It's going very well. I think there might be a couple of those other people that have stepped up to the plate for some naming rights or signs. You know, I think it has really helped us move a lot of projects along, because I would guess we're getting somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 worth of money at the end of the day, and that helps everybody.
Brings in a lot of people, a lot of youth involvement, and it's a very successful area out
Yes,
there too.
and it's gorgeous. I mean, they've done that right.
All right, Bob, we'll see you Monday night then.
All right.